Okay, let's get you up to date on how to use your TI-84 Plus calculator in a statistics course more effectively. So first things first, the calculations that you'll do in this section are things like mean, median, mode, and then of course weighted statistics, which we'll cover all of those topics in this video. So first thing is how to use lists of data in the calculator rather than just doing everything on the home screen. Because the thing is, if you wanted to calculate the mean of this data set, so over here I have a data set with the age of people eating at a restaurant. I could get the mean by typing in 18 plus 29 plus, and so forth and so forth, and then divide by the number of items in the end, and I could get the mean that way. But if I then needed to do another calculation, then I would need to type in the data set all over again, and each time I needed to do a different calculation. So it would be helpful if that data was entered once and referred to over and over. So the way the calculator does that is through what are known as lists. Now, to enter a list, you go under into the stat editor. So press the stat key, and the very first item, I'll make this bigger for you. The very first item that shows up is the edit menu. And this allows you to edit lists of data. Now, this menu is trying to look like a menuing system, on a computer. So you have different menus here and menu items here. So up and down, you scroll through menu items, left and right, submenus. The very first one that shows up is edit with 3 little dots after that. That is your list editor. And that works very much like a spreadsheet in like Excel or whatever. Now, you may or may not have data already in your list. If you do, follow along so that we can get rid of it. If not, just hold off for a second. So to get rid of, well, you can scroll around using your cursor keys to get to any different data items that exist. To get rid of a data item, what you can do is highlight the one you don't want and press the delete key, and that will remove it. Now, if you have a whole bunch of data inside a data set, you can get rid of the entire data set all at once if you scroll all the way up until you see the name of the list highlighted. Then press clear and enter. Be careful though, it's tempting to highlight the name and press delete, but that just removes the list from the list editor. It doesn't actually do what you want. It doesn't remove the data in the list. If you need to get it back, there's a couple of things you could do. You can hit second and insert, which allows you to put in a new list, and then just name it what it was supposed to be, which is L3. So hit second and 3 to get this L3, and it's back. Or alternatively, if you quit out of the list editor, hit stat, then come down to setup editor, that will restore your editor back to factory defaults. So either way works great. Just be careful there. So to get rid of all the data in a list, highlight the name, clear, and then enter. All right, so I'm going to clear out all the lists that have data here. And then we'll get started in our first example. Now, how do we go about entering data in the list? Well, like I said, this is very much like a spreadsheet, and so it's exactly as you would expect. You just start typing the data in and pressing enter. So for instance, 18 is your first item, so just type in 18 in that first list and press enter. Then 29, and so forth. So you just keep doing that until you get all the data for the set inserted. Okay, so once that's in, double check to make sure you have the correct data in, or else you might get wrong answers. That's really kind of the only way. And switch that back so you can see the whole list of data there in case you're trying to type that in along with me. Okay, now to calculate based off of this data set, what we're going to do, let me make that bigger again, is I'll try and just keep that like that, perfect. what we're going to do is quit out of the list editor. This will take us back to the home screen. Now we hit the stat key again, but this time we want to do some calculations. So the very first calculation item we have here is OneVerstats, and this is great because it does statistics based off of entire data sets all at once. So, and it gives us multiple results. So if you press enter, it should bring up a menu like this. And it says list, and the default is L1, then frequency list, and the default is L2. So if you're using weighted statistics, then that means you have a set of frequencies. So you would need your frequency list set. But if you don't have a frequency distribution that you're using, you don't want to use a frequency list. So either hit clear or delete or something to get rid of that item. Then come down and hit calculate. So you're just telling it the data that I want you to use is an L1. I don't have any frequencies. Now I want you to do all these calculations. And it will do that. It will come up with a whole bunch of different results here. The first of which is X bar, which you should recognize as a mean. So the mean of this data set is about 29.7. Sigma X, that's the sum of the data items. And you probably won't need that much in the class, but it's there just in case. Further on down, we have SX and Sigma X. These are standard deviations, which we'll talk about in the next section. N, which can come in handy sometimes. And then some more calculations, but next to Q1 here, see this down arrow? It means that it has more calculations done, but you have to scroll to see them. It's got the minimum, the maximum, and then Q1 and Q3 we'll talk about later in the lessons. And then also the median. So we can very easily get both the mean and the median from this same place, OneVerstats. All right, and of course the median calculator knows to sort your data set and get the middle one for you. You don't have to worry about sorting it to get that. It will do that for you. Now, one thing that's missing is the mode. But if you'll recall, the mode is supposed to be restricted only to calculations on qualitative data. So if you have quantitative data, it's not really supposed to be used anyway. But you can get the mode either by just looking through your data and seeing which one occurs the most, or if you'd like to use your calculator, here's one thing you could do. If we quit here, and instead of hitting the stat key alone, if you hit second and stat, you'll get into the list submenu. So there's things that you can do in lists of data apart from just the OneVerstats. If you scroll over to options, you have a list to, or an option to sort your data, either ascending or descending. And over here in math, if you'll notice, you can actually do means, medians, minimums, maximums, all kinds of different calculations here. But this is effectively all done for you with the OneVerstats all at once. So we generally don't use these very often, but sort could be helpful. So if you say sort ascending and then hit second and 1 to tell it that you want to sort list 1. Well, then if you go into your list editor, now that it's sorted, you can very easily tell which data items occur with the highest frequency because they're all ordered, and know that your mode is 12 and 29 in this case. So we have a bimodal data set. Okay, now the next thing that we need to be able to do is work with weighted statistics. Now to do weighted statistics, what we need is, first off, a frequency distribution to begin with. And I've put one together here for you down at the bottom. In order to calculate weighted statistics, one thing that we need to do is come up with the midpoint of each of the class ranges and couple those with the frequencies. So the midpoints are going to go into L1, the frequencies will go into L2. So to do the midpoints, and try and just keep that screen large. Now again, I want to get rid of this data in L1, So I'm scrolling up to the top of the list, press clear, and then enter. All right, so to get the midpoint between the ranges of 0 to 15, well, that is done by finding the average of these two numbers. So I want to add them together, so clearly that's just 15, and then divide by 2. Now, it should be 7.5, but if you don't know that right off the top of your head, that's actually okay, because you can just type in 15 divided by 2 for a list item, and it won't store it as 15 divided 2. It will store it as the value 7.5. So it'll do the calculation and then store the answer, which is very helpful when you need to do things, especially like the midpoint between 16 and 31. So you use parentheses because you need the 16 and 31 to add together first, and then divide by 2. So you do this whole midpoint calculation and then just enter the result here in L1. It's very convenient that way. Now, if you subtract these two numbers, 23.5 minus 7.5, that is 16. And if you weren't sure, you can actually just do that calculation right here. So 16, and that is the class width. So if you know the class width, you can always go from one midpoint to the next a little bit more directly. So for instance, the midpoint, the third class should be 23.5 plus 16, which is 39.5. Same as if we had done 32 plus 47 divided by 2. All right, so then if I take the previous midpoint, 39.5, and then add to that the class width of 16, and finally 55.5 divided by 6, or my bad, add 16. And that gets us our last midpoint. Okay, now the next thing that we need to do is enter the frequencies. Let me see if I can bring those over on page. Not quite. That's okay, I'll just do this. All right, the frequencies, the nice thing there is we don't need to do any changes with them. We just type them as we see them. But we'll put them in L2. And I will show you why in just a second, though you probably have already guessed that this time when we run one-var stats, so I quit out of the list editor, press the stat key, go over here to calc to get to one-var stats, press enter. It allows me to type in a list, all right, and also a frequency list. So L1 is the list of data that I'm working with. The frequencies of those items are contained in L2. Now when I press calculate, it will come up with a weighted set of statistics for me. So here 52.90 when I round to 2 places would be the weighted mean. And then also if I come down, if I needed a median, that's a weighted median as well. Now, it's very easy to accidentally not include the L2. So as a check, you could always just, for the value of n, here it's 246. That tells you that the calculation involved 246 numbers. And you don't need to know exactly what the sum of this frequency is. Being 246, it's a good approximation. That's fine. So that tells you you used about the right number of values. So you probably did the calculation correctly. Now, had you run one-var stats, okay, so stat calc one-var stats, and forgot to include the frequency list, it's still going to do the calculation, but only on the data that's in L1. So you'll get the result based off of 5 data items. Clearly 5 is not enough. The very first class, for instance, contains 6 items, and that's the minimum. So there's no way the sum of all these is equal to 5. So that tells you that you probably did your calculation improperly. So that's really the only good check afterward to make sure that you've done the right thing.